the United States federal government appropriated $150,000 for what was known now as the Great Surveys of the American West. Everybody before 1867 who had been in this area had only been here for a day or so and then gone through. John Gunnison's not hanging around for 3 months to really study the area. Lewis and Clark to the north, Zebulon Pike to the south. These guys are going through and spending 1 day going through. So they didn't know a whole lot about the flora and the fauna and the mining and the possible ranching and that kind of thing. So now we have the first scientific study of the West to eliminate ridiculous rumors that we have heard making the rounds. Hot water shooting 100 feet high in the air in the West. Everybody knew that was a damn lie. A river running through a canyon that God knows where, when, and everybody knew that was a lie. And Indians living in the walls of canyons 4 stories high somewhere in the West, and everybody knew that was a lie. So in they came. Clarence Rivers King, exposing a diamond hoax, northwestern Colorado. John Wesley Powell down the Colorado River, first guy ever, 1869. George Wheeler, one of his men, William Marshall, went from Santa Fe to Denver to get a abscessed tooth taken care of, looked for a shorter way than they had before, and went over Marshall Pass, adjacent to Monarch Pass, a low depression in the mountains, took barometric readings, and today that pass is named for him, and that is where the Denver and Rio Grande entered the Gunnison country in 1881, a number of years later. And the last guy, Ferdinand Vanderveer Hayden, standing on top of Mount Teocalli at 13,200 feet, looking off to the north and seeing 2 mountains that he called the Crested Buttes. Later on, they figured out that one more resembled a Gothic cathedral, so they named it Gothic Mountain. And then they dropped the S on the buttes, and they named the other one Crested Butte Mountain, because it resembled the crest of a Spanish helmet. This is 1874. These are the guys who come in. Now, 2 of the legendary guys who come in early in the Gunnison country, Alonzo Hartman, who after the Indians move out, takes up a ranch right around the Hartman Castle and the KOA campground that we have today. The other guy is a guy named Sylvester Richardson from Wisconsin, who came in here with the Parsons Geological Expedition of 1873. And Sylvester Richardson walked 500 miles. When the Parsons expedition went back to Denver, he stayed here alone. Found all the coal around Crested Butte and up Ohio Creek. Found the marble deposits on White House Mountain in Marble, Colorado, and loved the possibilities of this tremendous valley. The Gunnison Valley, the Tamichi Valley, the Ohio Creek Valley, the East River Valley, the Lake Fork Valley, and he thought this is going to be one of the great agricultural areas of all time. And he went back to Denver and he started the Gunnison Colony. The Gunnison country now had been named for John Gunnison, who had been killed in Utah. And in May of 1874, he brought 20 people in to the Gunnison country, coming in over Cochito Pass. And they took up ranches. Now, everybody realized very early that it got a little nippy out here. But one of the big myths of the Gunnison country is that you cannot raise agricultural produce. Now, these people are here in 1874. Is there a railroad here? No. Are you going to have, can you go over to Safeway or you buzz over to City Market to shop? Hell no. You got to be self-sustaining. And they were. They had fresh beef, They had milk cows, so they had milk. There were 3 cheese factories in the Gunnison country. And they raised agricultural produce. Now, before I go on, I'm going to tell you about a mining engineer named Harry Cornwall, who came to Irwin during the boom. And when the boom busted, his father, George Cornwall, took up a ranch up Ohio Creek. And Harry Cornwall left us with a 100-page memoir. And George Cornwall put in a garden. And all the ranchers said, "You are crazier than hell. You can't put in a garden here. It's not enough growing season." But Harry said, "Father had a garden in New York, so he put a garden in anyway." And everything came up. Onions, peas, beans, carrots, parsnips. And he said, ranchers came from 20 miles away to see Father's garden on horseback. After that, every rancher had a garden. Because you got water, you got sun. For every 1,000 feet of elevation above zero, you can go up 1 degree. So if it's 75 degrees in the summer, in Gunnison it's really 83 because of the intensity of the sun. They raised commercial lettuce on Marshall Creek outside of Sargent's and shipped it out by the carload. They raised commercial strawberries at Sargent's. And when Will Hicks came in on the railroad with those strawberries to sell them on the stoplight corner of Main and Tamichi, Will told me, he was a son, he told me that he very rarely had very many strawberries left because the people on the train bought them out before he got here. They raised potatoes and shipped them out by the carload, where the Lost Canyon Ranch is, about 4 miles before you get to Elmont. So this was self-sustainable. And then, of course, the railroad would come in. But now we got a great silver rush in the Gunnison country. And people coming in by wagon, horseback, any means of conveyance, went right through Gunnison and headed north to the great booming silver towns of Irwin, 10 miles west of Crested Butte. Gothic, 8 miles north of Crested Butte. White Pine, near the base of Monarch Pass. Tin Cup, on the base of Taylor Park. All over the place they are. Gothic, Irwin, Pitkin, on Quartz Creek. Thousands of people coming in. And Gunnison became the center point, the hub of the wheel. And that is where 3 smelters came. That is where the Rio Grande came. That is where the supplies came to. And then they shipped them out of Gunnison to these mining camps. And these mining camps are located at high elevation. And the railroad didn't run into many of them. It didn't go to Irwin, didn't go to Gothic, didn't go to Tin Cup, didn't go to White Pine. The only railroad that came into one of those mining camps was the South Park coming into Pitkin. And the Denver Rio Grande Railroad came in from Denver. And it was the brainchild of William Jackson Palmer. Folks, we got chairs here if you want to come in. Come on in. So William Jackson Palmer's on vacation and on his honeymoon in London, England in 1870 with his wife Mary Queen Mellon of the famous Mellon family of Pennsylvania. And he sees that the British Locomotive Association is sponsoring a talk by Robert Fairley called The Rails of the Future. Palmer gave his wife $200, sent her shopping, and he went to hear that talk. And Robert Fairley talked about a type of railroad that was relatively unknown in the Gunnison country and in the West and in the U.S. Narrow gauge, 3 feet wide rails. Could go up sharper grades, around sharper curves. Could get into camps first and could be built for less money. Palmer came back and started the Denver and Rio Grande Railroad. It's going to go from Denver to the Rio Grande all the way to Mexico City, tapping mines on the west side of the road and farms on the east side of the road. So he goes from Denver to Colorado Springs. That is his town. He built that town. Little London, Newport of the Rockies, the Broadmoor Hotel, the Antlers Hotel, and then the Pueblo, and then along the Arkansas River to Poncha Springs and Salida, and then over Marshall Pass, down into Sargent's, right through the Tamichi Valley, arriving in Gunnison August 6, 1881. Wasted no time. Main line went right through part of the Black Canyon heading for Montrose. The branch went 28 miles up to Crested Butte because there was coal in Crested Butte and you needed coal to run a railroad. Now they always said that the Denver and Rio Grande and narrow gauge railroads they didn't run very fast. 9 miles an hour top speed. On time, anytime. Didn't want it to run over you because it was on you for so long. The classic story of a woman going from Gunnison to Crested Butte, walks up to the conductor, said, "Can't this damn train go any faster? I'm about ready to have a baby." Conductor wagged his finger under her nose and said, "Madam, you should have thought about this before you got on the damn train." The woman wagged her finger under the conductor's nose and said, "I wasn't in this condition when I got on this train." Now, ladies and gentlemen, that is a slow train. So we got the Rio Grande Railroad arriving. The other one racing the Rio Grande to be first in the Gunnison country is the Denver South Park and Pacific of ex-Governor John Evans. This one came from Denver, Turkey Creek Canyon, Kenosha Pass, South Park through Jefferson, Como, and Fairplay, Trout Creek Pass, up Chalk Creek, and then tunneled under the highest railroad tunnel in the world at 11,500 feet, the Alpine Tunnel. Fabulous. Now, they had a rock slide on the tunnel a few years ago. That's all been scraped off. The road will be again open next summer. So you can drive up to the Alpine Tunnel. And it took them a long time to tunnel through. And that's why they lost the race with the Rio Grande coming into the Gunnison country. The Alpine Tunnel is 11,523 feet high, 1,771 feet long. Now, when I got here in the early 60s, you could get into the tunnel on the west side. You go down a hole about this big and you slide down about 30 feet, and then you're in the tunnel, and you could walk about 2/3 of the way through with a carbide lamp and hip boots because there's water in the tunnel. And in that magic place in the tunnel, you put two pieces of paper, one here, one here, right next to each other, and if you hit the exact continental divide, the papers will flow opposite directions. One going to the eastern slope and one going to the western slope.
Oh, wow.
And that's why they built the Alpine Tunnel with a slight grade so water would run out either side. And now you're out of the tunnel and you're on this fantastic grade where the rocks fell, called the Palisades. 450 feet long and 50 feet up and down, holding the railroad to the edge of a cliff. No mortar. And the South Park then ran all the way into Pitkin at 9,200 feet and came into Gunnison in September of '82, having lost the race. And it never went any further than Baldwin up Ohio Creek because the boom in Irwin had busted. And even though they had graded into Irwin, it dead-ended, never went any further. So the Rio Grande and the South Park Railroad, two railroads came in to the Gunnison country, and the Gunnison country is now a boom town. Gunnison's a boom town.